Hello guys and welcome to Ash's Whiskey Wars. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my favourite 5 Islay whiskies. Now, as most of you know, Islay is my favourite region in Scotland, although that's closely followed by Campbelltown, and I do want to get into the Lowland region a lot more next year. So since Islay is my favourite region, I have the most bottles from this region, so choosing 5 was incredibly difficult, but I have chosen 5. Now in this review, I'm not taking into account money. I have also done a video of my budget picks, so money is more of a consideration there. So do check that one out if you haven't already. I don't know if I'm posting, I think I'll post the budget picks first, so that will be last Wednesday's video. Okay, so kicking things off, I'm going to pick a whiskey that, really this is from the distillery that was my first foray into Islay, and I think it was my it was my 5th ever bottle of whiskey, and it was an Islay whiskey, and it was love at first sight. That whiskey was the Lafroig 10, but I'm not going to pick that or the cask strength in today's video because I think this one's a little bit better. And it's better because it gives me more things to think about. It's far more complex. Now, Lafroig call it their richest whiskey, so you might already know which one it is. It's bottled at 48%. It's the Lafroig Law. Strangely enough, I don't know if this interests you or not, well, they've recently redone all their packaging, but on their previous packaging, this was the only, I think it is a very dark green packaging, the rest are white. So I think they've done that to make it stand out. I'm going to try a little bit of each one just to rejig my memory a little bit. But I just love this bottle. The green bottle, the green glass, making you think of back in the day, definitely hospital vibes. Old medicine bottles. And we haven't got much left, so that's a shame. That happens to a lot of my Isleys. So what this whiskey does that other Lafroigs do not do is it really does add the note of chocolate to a Lafroig, which works so well in the whiskey. That chocolate mixing with the ashy nature of Lafroig. Of course, for Lafroig, for me, it's certainly more forest-like. But the Law really does restrain that forest character, which I do actually prefer in a Lafroig. But that chocolate addition and ashiness, the combination, it really is so nice. But as well as that, you also pick up sherry. It's not overly sherried. In fact, if you've had the 10-year sherry oak or the PX or the triple wood, they are heavily dosed in sherry and it dominates the whiskey. This one does it really well, I think, because it just adds it in. It doesn't dominate. In this whiskey, you have quarter cask influence, sherry cask influence, but also, what I think is really interesting is there's some really old Lafroig in here. Now, I believe when I bought this whiskey, at the time, it was rumoured to have, I think it was 21-year-old Lafroig in there. I could be wrong. 18 or 21-year-old Lafroig, just a small bit. And also, the quarter cask influence, they were quarter casks that had held Lafroig for 7 or 8 years, I think it was at the time. I think I heard John Campbell say that in an interview once. Don't hold me to it, but I think I remember that. And the quarter cask influence is so strong. But again, what I love about it is it's different pieces that are really well done and more intense. So you have old Lafroig, which mellows it but makes it a bit rich. The quarter cask influence is not like the quarter cask. It's much older, much more intense, but there's less of it that's been added into the bottle. So Yeah, it's just expertly blended. Now, it did take me a while to get into this, but I would say after about a year of having the bottle, I started to uncover and unpick tropical fruit notes as well, which I imagine come from that aged Laphroaig that's in here. And it's just all those little pieces. I just think this Laphroaig is exceptional. It really does give you something so unique and different to what other Islers can give you. And so yeah, this had to make my top 5. It's not my favourite Laphroaig, but I think it's a special Laphroaig. So it's a on the taste, salty seaweed, like really salty seaweed, but with cracked black pepper. It's very minerally. There's also a little bit of chili in here, a little bit of pepper. Again, I don't get that on any other Laphroaig. As well as that chocolate and ashy nature of the whiskey. And also I get a lot of iodine in here too. So it really does give me that medicinal element that I just adore in Islay whiskies. Yeah, Laphroaig Lore in the top 5, easily. Okay, in number 4, guys, we have a 10-year-old Islay whiskey, bottled at 50% ABV. And this is a whiskey that I had really at the start of my journey, before I started my channel. I really do need to buy another bottle of this whiskey because there's hardly any left. And it has been sitting here for quite some time, so it might not be as good as I remember. And so I usually do forget to include it on some lists because it's old and at the back of my storage. This is the Port Charlotte 10-year-old from Bruichladdich. I love the steel tin. Let's get some poured out. Now this whiskey is around 40 ppm, but it also has French wine cask influence in here too. And it really comes through on the taste. This whiskey is one of my favourites for a reason, and it's because for me it's so different to a lot of the Islers which I own. So first off, I do want to mention seaweed. I get seaweed in this whiskey. I do get peat, but it doesn't seem as strong as a lot of the ones on this list. It is a little bit salty, but this one is more sweet than salty for me. And I get like a chocolate fudge cake, which is a really unusual note, but if you have this, you will get that note, I think, because it's very sweet, it's very dessert-like. Clearly coming from those French wine casks. It smells like a dessert. You get dusted cocoa powder on a chocolate fudge cake, very moist cake. But there's also lots of caramel in there too. Imagine like a buttered toffee sauce on top of a chocolate fudge cake. Sticky toffee pudding, actually. I've just figured out a better description. Sticky toffee pudding is salted sticky toffee pudding and seaweed with a little bit of peat and smoke. What's not to like about that? Honestly, what is not to like about that? Yeah, there's a couple of whiskies that I really do need to buy again, but that is the nature of being a reviewer. You never really buy them again. Comes across spicy, actually, on the taste. On the nose, you don't get the spice. On the taste, you do get spice. A wood spice, but if you think of like a sawdust, that spicy wood, a little bit of ginger on the taste, and there's something that's a little bit of a fresher, not citrus, but there's a fresher fruit on here that pulls you away from that dessert-like characteristic from the nose, a little bit more on the taste. For me, it's like a melon. If you could imagine a honeydew melon with ginger, a little bit spicy with salted sticky toffee pudding and seaweed and peat. That's this whiskey for me. I've not had it in a long time. It's been a pleasure just having a little bit now. Okay guys, in number 3, I've got another fresh glass because this whiskey is unpeated. So I certainly can't reuse a glass. It's 12 years of age, it's cask strength, it's last year's edition, it's the Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength. And if you guys have seen a recent video of mine, I went through my best buys of this year so far. And this one was in, I think it was the top 3. This one reached top 3, and it is top 3 in my Islay picks too. Amazing whiskey, really good. So what I get initially on the nose is, you could call it Christmas cake, but for a lot of people who don't know what that is, think of like a really buttery fruit cake. So a lot of raisins, some treacle-esque characteristics, so that darkened caramel, that cooked caramel. And I also get a little bit of salt, so it's like a salted butter that's been used to cook a Christmas cake or a really rich fruit cake. And on the taste, it's so rich. It's really buttery. For me, it's just buttered raisins. I really, really cannot stress how much I enjoy this whiskey. Now, the proof of this whiskey is 60.1% ABV, so it's really quite strong. The Port Charlotte is 50% and the Lafroig 48%. Also pricing, this is £75, but I did pick it up for 65. Around 50, but you can pick it up for 45, and around £60, maybe £65 for the law. What I also get in this whiskey is coffee and chocolate, and the coffee it really is present in the whiskey, and it does make it a touch bitter, which I actually really like because it's a very sweet whiskey. The salted element is really interesting and nice, but that coffee bean really does make it a touch bitter. Just gives an extra addition to the whiskey. Adds to that complexity. Love it. Just love that whiskey. Okay guys, in number 2, we have an Ardbeg. This is a whiskey that I picked up this year, and I only picked it up because I didn't think that it would be worth the money, first and foremost. And I picked it up purely to complete the core range of Ardbeg, so I could release one of my buying guide videos, which I released a couple of weeks ago. So if you do want to check that out, if you have the time, I do recommend you do that. I run through the core range of Ardbegs and say the differences and then rank them best to worst. So I didn't have high hopes for it, and it just shows you that you can listen to reviews, you can hear, you can see tasting notes that people provide on some whiskies, and you can think, yeah, that's not really for me, or because this is the most expensive of the core range, and see the price and go, I think the other ones will suit me better. How wrong I was. So let that be a lesson to you guys. This is the Ardbeg Corrie Wrekin. This is my favourite Ardbeg, taste-wise, when price doesn't come into it. And it's bottled, I think, at 57.1%. Yeah, 57.1%. This whiskey is right up my alley, because what this Ardbeg gives me that some others don't is it really does turn up the medicinal notes for me. A lot of iodine, a lot of rubbing plasters, sticking plasters. TCP, and I love those notes. It does give you seaweed as well. In fact, maybe, I mean, that is a note that I do love in whiskey, so a few of these do give me seaweed. Once I really dug into this whiskey, a note that I really started to unpick was this really, maybe it was just one day I was preparing chicken. It was a really buttery roast chicken. That smell, I can't say it's a nice smell, to be honest with you, but I really do pick it up on the nose, not on the taste of the Corrie Wrekin. Of course, there's a lot more complexity to this whiskey than just that, thank goodness. But no, I get it. It also gives me a mossiness. It's not quite as forest-like as the Laphroaig, but it does give me more of an earthy touch than the Laphroaig. So I get moss and soil, some tobacco, not too much, but a little bit. Probably the peatiest of the lineup, but the medicinal qualities that I love, as well as that roasted buttered chicken. But I also get something herbal on here, and it's by no means a sweet herb. This is a bitter herb, and so it gives me something different, but I love that. And I think perhaps it's like a sage or a tarragon. Imagine a barbecued red meat that's been wrapped in a bitter herb. It really is quite fragrant, but not in a sweet way, but I love it for that. Bottled at 57.1%, you have a sip of this, you do taste the proof. But it does come across a little bit spicy. That you don't really pick that up on the nose, but on the taste you do. So again, that little bit of chili pepper that I got in the Laphroaig, I also get in the Ardbeg. But with the Ardbeg, a note that I haven't picked up yet is, for me, it's a blackberry. So it's quite a sharp, sweet dark fruit, but also can be a little bit tangy. And that's what I get with the Ardbeg. It is an incredible, incredible whiskey. And it's number 2 on my list for a reason. Okay guys, my number 1 pick. So, some of you know what this whiskey is going to be. I'm not going to talk about it too much because I have featured it recently quite a bit. But I just love this whiskey. Number 1, my favourite Islay whiskey that I own is the Laphroaig 16. This whiskey, bottled at 48%, is purely ex-bourbon cask, which I think is probably going to be the first Islay whiskey here that is just ex-bourbon cask. Let's get some poured out. There we go. Healthy pour. I'll enjoy this afterwards. So really what this whiskey does for me personally is it mellows out Laphroaig. Now you might get a little bit scared when I say that because you might love the Laphroaig 10 or even the cask strength. And I do too. And it's a very aggressive whiskey. What the Laphroaig 16 does for me is it actually keeps all the forest elements and actually makes them stronger. The vanilla in Laphroaig, it makes stronger, and it's like a vanilla cream, and it gets more herbal. So it's forest-like, it's herbal and vanilla cream, and it reduces the level of peat. It reduces the ashiness. It really does soften and mellow it out. But if you're used to the Laphroaig 10, this is 8% higher in ABV. So if you can picture vanilla cream with just a touch of lime juice, but with honey added to keep it sweet, a touch of sea salt, but not much, still preserving some of the forest-like DNA of Laphroaig, but reducing the peat. It's like the embers of a campfire. So after it's lit the following day, you're just picking up that beautiful smoke, but it's a light smoke. I do get, just recently I've started adding in this note, and it's like a white grape, or even a melon, like I got earlier, I think on the Port Charlotte. That note, it really is there, but it's not strong. And so it's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit vanilla shortbread as well. It's a very different Laphroaig, so even though I eulogise over this whiskey, if you love Laphroaig, that doesn't mean that you'll necessarily love the 16-year, because it is a different take on Laphroaig, but I love the take that they've done on it. It's like a sophisticated Laphroaig. Definitely my number one pick. Okay guys, there does my top 5 picks for the Islay region of Scotland. These are my favourite 5. In number 1 place we have the Laphroaig 16, in number 2 the Ardbeg Corrie Wrekin, in number 3 the Bunnahabhain 12 Cask Strength, the 2023 edition, in number 4 the Port Charlotte 10, and in number 5 the Laphroaig Law. But please let me know your thoughts down below. If you have any other Islay whiskey that you personally think that I need to try, do let me know in the comments down below, and also give me your list as well. I love reading people's lists. That's why I make these list videos, because I just think they're so fun to make. It really does give good conversation in the community, in the comments down below. That's why I create these videos, guys. I like that sort of community and conversation that we've all built together over the last few years. And finally guys, if you like the video, please drop a like on the video, and also click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I think we're about 14 or 15 subscribers away from 1,100, so that'd be really cool if we can hit that soon. And finally, a big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you all for the next Whiskey War.